Okay,
So
real
this is
talk.
the finished mansion.
The first
We've got
time I
3
held a
levels,
Syrian hamster in
deep
my
bedding,
hands, I
and
literally
miles of
teared up.
tunnels for him to
There was
explore.
this tiny little
On the
creature,
left, a
barely
typical
the size of my
30-centimeter pet
fist,
store cage.
with these
On the
huge
right, the
dark eyes
recommended
blinking
100
up at me.
centimeter minimum.
And I thought,
The difference
I
in
am
welfare is clear.
responsible for
The
everything
measuring
this
tape
little
confirms
soul
the
feels.
enclosure is exactly
Every
100
single day.
centimeters long,
That hit
giving
me
our
hard.
little friend lots
And
of room
honestly,
to run.
that feeling never really goes away. But here's the thing nobody tells you when you first bring one home. Most people, and I mean most people, not just beginners, are accidentally making their hamster miserable without even knowing it. Not because they don't care, because the information out there is so outdated, so copy-pasted from bad source to bad source, that people try their hardest and still get it all backwards. So today, we're going all in on what Syrian hamsters absolutely cannot stand. The stuff
When
that
you compare the
stresses them
small
out,
space
scares
of a
them,
pet store
makes them
cage
feel
to this
unsafe.
5-mile trail,
And then the beautiful
the scale
flip
of the
side of
difference
what
becomes
genuinely
clear.
lights them up. What makes a Syrian hamster's little heart sing. And trust me, once you see your hamster truly happy, there is no going back. You will become just as obsessed as I am. Stick with me, because somewhere in the middle I'm going to share something about Syrian hamsters
While the
that
hamster
shocked
on the left
even me.
exhibits
Let's
stress
start with the
behaviors like
hard
bar
stuff
chewing,
first.
the hamster
The
in the
things
enriched
they
bin
hate.
is able to run
Because
and burrow
knowing
naturally.
what hurts them is the fastest way to fix things, and the faster you fix things, the sooner your hammy starts living their absolute best life. The number one
repetitive
thing,
motion
and this one
indicates severe
genuinely
stress.
breaks my heart every
This
time I bring
enclosure
it
is
up,
far too
is
small
being
for a
kept in a
Syrian
cage
hamster.
that's too small.
Look at this cage.
I remember the first setup I
He's
ever
gonna
bought.
love it.
It was one
I
of
can't
those
wait to get him
bright-colored
home.
plastic cages from the pet store, the ones they literally market for hamsters on the label, and I thought I was doing everything right. The worker smiled at me, told me it was perfect, and I
The
went
difference
home
is clear.
feeling completely
Small,
prepared.
unnatural
and my
cages
hamster
cause
spent
stress
the first
and
2
boredom,
weeks
while
constantly
spacious,
running the bars
enriched
at night,
environment.
every single night. Bar chewing, climbing, trying to get out. And I thought, oh, she's just active, she's playful. This is normal hamster stuff. It wasn't normal. She was screaming for space in the only language she had. Here's what you need to understand about Syrian hamsters on a deep biological level. In the wild, these guys travel up to 5 miles
really want
every
out of there,
single
don't
night.
you?
5 miles. Not 5 laps around a cage. 5 actual miles across open terrain. Their
Look how
bodies
small
are literally
you
built
are.
for movement, for exploration,
tiny little
for covering
paws.
ground in the dark. So when you put them in a cage that's 30 centimeters long, which is what most pet store cages are, you're not just giving them less room, you are working directly against millions of years of instinct. And that creates what's called stereotypic behavior, the bar biting, the repetitive running back and forth, the frantic digging at corners. It's not quirky, it's a stress response. It means they're suffering. The minimum most hamster welfare organizations now recommend is at least 100 centimeters long and 50 centimeters wide. And honestly, bigger is always better, always. There's no such thing as a cage that's too big for a Syrian hamster. I've seen people turn entire wardrobes into hamster enclosures, and watching those hamsters explore every inch of that space, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And speaking of space, let's talk about what fills that space. Because the second thing Syrian hamsters absolutely hate is shallow bedding. This one took me forever to understand because nobody talks about it enough. Syrian hamsters are burrowing animals. Like hardcore, obsessive, I will dig until I reach the Earth's core burrowing animals. In the wild, they create these incredible multi-chamber burrow systems, separate rooms for sleeping, for storing food, for nesting. It's genuinely architectural. They are tiny little engineers. When you give them 2 inches of bedding, you are not letting them be what they fundamentally are. And that frustration, that inability to express a core natural behavior, is one of the biggest sources of chronic stress in pet Syrian hamsters. Chronic. Not just a bad day, ongoing, sustained stress that affects their immune system, their behavior, their lifespan. What you want is a minimum of 6 inches of bedding, 10 or 12 if you can manage it. Watch what happens the first time you give a Syrian hamster genuinely deep bedding. They will dig with frantic joy that looks almost cartoonish, Little paws flying, entire body disappearing into the substrate. They resurface looking so proud and satisfied. It is everything. For bedding material, you want paper-based or hemp bedding. Avoid cedar and pine. The aromatic oils in those can damage a hamster's respiratory system. Avoid anything fluffy or cotton wool-like, because it can wrap around tiny limbs and cause serious injuries. Stick to the safe stuff and go deep. Your hammy will thank you in the only way they can, by being visibly, undeniably happy. Now here's one that surprises a lot of people. Syrian hamsters absolutely hate being woken up during the day. And I get it. You come home from work, you're excited to see your little one, you peek in the enclosure and there's this adorable little fluff ball curled up in a nest, and you just have to say, "Hi, I've done it. I've definitely done it." But here's the thing, Syrian hamsters are crepuscular, which means they're naturally most active at dawn and dusk, with most of their activity happening at night. Their sleep cycle is not just a preference, it's deeply tied to their cortisol levels, their immune function, their entire biological rhythm. When you wake them up mid-sleep, especially repeatedly, you're essentially doing the equivalent of someone shaking you awake at 3 a.m. every single day. It's jarring, it's stressful, and over time it genuinely degrades their health. I had a little guy named Biscuit, golden Syrian, the size of a small potato, and for months I was constantly tapping the glass trying to wake him up because I missed him during the day. He was grumpy all the time, biting, hiding the moment I opened the enclosure. I thought he didn't like me. Turns out I was just exhausting him. The moment I committed to only interacting with him after 7 p.m., when he'd naturally woken up. Within 2 weeks, completely different hamster, calm, curious, coming to my hand on his own. The relationship you can have with a Syrian hamster when their rhythms are genuinely honored is something special, but it requires patience. It requires letting them be nocturnal creatures instead of trying to fit them into your schedule. Okay, let's talk about something that I think is one of the most misunderstood things in all of hamster keeping. Loneliness, but not in the way you'd think. People see hamsters kept together at the pet store and think they need a companion, for some dwarf species that can work. But Syrian hamsters are fiercely solitary. In the wild, outside of mating, they don't share territory. 2 Syrians in the same enclosure will eventually fight, and those fights can be fatal. This is not negotiable. It is hardwired into who they are. But here's the misconception that breaks my heart. People assume their Syrian must be lonely. Your hamster is not lonely because they don't have a friend. They are perfectly complete on their own. What they need instead is enrichment, exploration, mental stimulation. And that, my friend, is where things get incredibly fun. Let's talk about the wheel. And I don't mean any wheel. I mean the right wheel, because this matters more than almost anything else in the enclosure. Syrian hamsters need a solid, smooth surface wheel with no crossbars. Crossbars can catch little feet and cause horrific injuries. The wheel needs to be big enough that their back doesn't arch while they run. For a Syrian hamster, you're looking at a minimum of 10 inches in diameter, and 11 or 12 is even better. And here's what genuinely blew my mind about the wheel. Hamsters in the wild run those 5 miles a night, whether or not a predator is chasing them. They run because running itself is neurologically rewarding. It releases dopamine, it regulates stress hormones. It is, for a Syrian hamster, the equivalent of your morning coffee, your evening walk, and your meditation all rolled into one. Studies on rodent behavior have shown that voluntary wheel running reduces stereotypic behavior, reduces aggression, and measurably extends well-being. Get a quality solid surface wheel. The night angel, the wardent wheel, the silent runner, the ones the hamster community consistently swears by. Yes, they cost more than cheap pet store wheels. Yes, worth every penny. Now I want to talk about something that surprises almost every new owner. Syrian hamsters have an extraordinary sense of smell. It shapes literally everything about how they experience the world. Safety, threats, finding food, all of it runs through their nose. And this is why you should never fully deep clean a hamster's enclosure all at once. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but when you strip away every trace of their scent from their home, you erase them from their own space. They wake up somewhere that smells completely foreign, that carries no memory of them, and it triggers real anxiety. What you do instead is spot clean regularly, but leave a handful of their existing bedding when you do a full change. That simple act makes an enormous difference. It says in hamster language, "This is still your home. You are safe here." Let's talk about food, because there is so much joy in how Syrian hamsters eat, and also some real danger I want to make sure you're aware of. Syrian hamsters are natural foragers. In the wild, they don't find their food in a bowl. They travel, they search, they discover. Their cheek pouches, those absolutely absurd, magnificent cheek pouches that can hold what feels like half their body weight, exist specifically because they evolved to carry food long distances back to their burrow. Foraging is not just fun for them, it is deeply fulfilling on a neurological level. So one of the most impactful things you can do for your Syrian hamster's happiness is scatter feed. Instead of putting all their food in a bowl, hide it. Bury seeds in the bedding, tuck pieces of food inside cardboard tubes, sprinkle their mix across the substrate, let them work for it. Let them sniff and dig and discover. The first time you watch your hamster find a hidden piece of food and stuff it into their cheek pouch, with the most satisfied expression you have ever seen on a small animal, you will be completely undone. It is adorable beyond description. Now for the danger part, because I cannot talk about food without mentioning this. Syrian hamsters are highly susceptible to diabetes, especially lighter-colored and white varieties. Those hamster yogurt drops from the pet store, essentially candy for an animal that doesn't need candy and can develop serious metabolic issues from regular sugar. Fruits, honey, sweet treats, very sparingly if at all. Stick to a high-quality seed mix as the base, supplemented with protein a few times a week, mealworms, boiled egg, tiny bits of plain cooked chicken, and occasional safe vegetables like cucumber, carrot, broccoli, and bell pepper. Fresh water every day. And always check before you give them something new, because several common foods, onion, garlic, citrus, grapes, raisins, are actually toxic to hamsters. 30 seconds to check could save your hamster's life. Can we talk about enrichment? Because this is where I genuinely get giddy, embarrassingly, unashamedly excited. Syrian hamsters are intelligent animals, not in the way a dog is, but in a focused, exploratory, problem-solving way that is completely specific to who they are. They need things to investigate, to climb, to chew, to dig, to figure out. An enclosure with just a wheel and a hide is like a house with one room and no windows. It's technically shelter, but it isn't a life. Think about what their wild environment offered. Roots to chew through, rocks to climb over, multiple burrow entrances, insects to chase, seeds buried deep under soil. Cork bark is incredible, natural, safe to chew, creates climbing and hiding spots simultaneously. Cardboard is underrated and free, toilet paper rolls, small boxes, egg cartons. Hamsters will shred and rearrange these for hours. Dried herbs in the bedding, chamomile, lavender, rose petals, offer new scents to investigate, and some have mild calming effects. A sand bath, a small dish of reptile sand, not dust, lets them groom and just seems to produce pure joy. And here's what most people never know. Syrian hamsters will actually rearrange their enclosure to suit themselves. Leave them to it. Don't reorganize things back to how you think it should look. Let them move their hide to the corner they prefer. Let them pile bedding into one specific spot. They are actively designing their own space, and that agency, that ability to make choices about their environment, is deeply important to their psychological well-being. I want to spend a moment on handling, because this is where new owners either build something beautiful or accidentally set back their relationship with their hamster by months. Syrian hamsters are not immediately trusting. They shouldn't be. You're enormous from their perspective. Your hands move unpredictably. The trust has to be earned. when it finally clicks, when your hamster climbs into your hand of their own choice and just sits there, completely at ease, that voluntary choice means everything. They chose you. You earned that. Start by sitting near the enclosure without pressure. Offer your hand inside without reaching for them. Just let it be there, becoming familiar. Small treats connect your scent to good things. Never chase, never corner. Always let them make the first move. It might take 2 weeks. It might take 6. And the hamsters that take longest often become the most deeply bonded. Because they were careful, they were selective, and they chose you anyway. Here's what I've been building toward all video, and I promised it would shock you. Syrian hamsters can develop something researchers call judgment bias, a measure used in animal welfare science to assess whether an animal holds a positive or negative baseline mood, and studies have shown that hamsters kept in enriched, spacious environments display measurably optimistic judgment bias. Even their instinctive, automatic responses to the world are positive. They approach uncertain situations expecting good things. Hamsters in barren, understimulating environments show the exact opposite. They approach the same situations expecting bad things. In a measurable, scientific sense, more anxious, more braced for the worst. The environment you provide doesn't just affect behavior on the surface. It literally shapes their emotional baseline. Whether they experience the world as a safe place full of interesting things or as a threatening place to be survived, that is profound. That is a responsibility and an opportunity at the same time. You have the power to give your hamster a life where they wake up every evening expecting good things, where the world feels like somewhere worth exploring rather than somewhere to hide from. That is not a small thing, that is everything. So where do you start? Enclosure size first. It's almost always the biggest impact. You don't need to spend a fortune either. Repurposed storage bins with ventilation cut into the lid, 40 or 60 liters, make excellent hamster homes. A solid surface wheel, deep paper bedding, some cardboard, food scattered around. A genuinely enriched hamster life costs less than you'd think. I want to end with this. Syrian hamsters have relatively short lives. Most live between 2 and 3 years. That's it. That's the whole span of their existence. And within that short, precious window, every single day matters. Every night of good running matters. Every proper burrow matters. Every scatter feed, every safe space, every gentle interaction matters. They suffer quietly. They don't demand attention in ways that are impossible to ignore. And that quietness means the people who love them have to pay close attention, keep learning, actively choose to give them the life they deserve. If you made it to the end of this video, I already know something about you. You care. You're here, learning, trying. And your hamster is lucky to have you. Now go give your hammy a little scatter feed, turn down the lights, and let them have their night. They've got miles to run and burrows to build and cheeks to stuff. And tomorrow, when you watch them doing all of that, thriving, busy, alive in their little world, you'll feel something really good. I know you will. If this video helped you see your hammy a little differently today, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more hamster owners who need this information. Subscribe to HammyRealm if you haven't already, because we have so much more coming. Next time, we're going deep on something barely anyone talks about, the secret signs that your Syrian hamster actually trusts you, and the ones that mean you need to go back to square one. You will not want to miss it. Drop in the comments what's one thing you learned today that you're going to change in your hamster's setup. I read every single one. This is HammyRealm, and your hammy deserves the whole world. See you in the next one.